What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another video and happy 2022. So this is my first video of the new year, and so I thought it'd be helpful to do a video of tips. So these are 5 photography tips that I wish I knew earlier. So these are just tips and tricks that I've kind of learned through the years as a professional photographer, and hopefully by telling you these, they help you become a better photographer yourself. So let's jump right into it. Tip number 1, don't wait for motivation to hit. So I think in our society, there's this misconception that passion and motivation are the same when they really aren't. So you can be passionate about something, but you're not always going to be motivated. And I found in anything creative, this is very important to kind of delineate the difference between passion and motivation. So you can be passionate about photography and still not want to shoot all the time. And so burnout is a very real thing, but in my experience and throughout my whole career, the best way to kind of get through burnout and get that motivation back is to take action. So action breeds motivation, not the other way around. A lot of people are just waiting for motivation to hit, and for some that just never happens. So you can be passionate about photography, but there's going to be days that you don't want to go shoot. But if you force yourself out on those days to go shoot, I've found that kind of sparks motivation. So maybe it's cold out, or maybe, right now in Western PA, it's wintertime. So it's cold, it's snowy, it's not very photogenic. And so the motivation for me to go outside and shoot is quite low. But after like a snowstorm or something, getting out there and shooting, some landscapes or going into the city and shooting, I'll get photos that I'll come back and look at and get excited about. And then the next time going out isn't that hard. And so I think just being actionable and taking action will help you find that motivation. And I think it's important to not get too hard on yourself if you're not motivated, because that doesn't mean that you hate photography or you're not passionate about photography anymore. Everybody goes through slumps, and for me personally, getting out of that slump usually requires me to do something. So take action if you're if you're feeling yourself going into that slump. Taking action is a good way of getting yourself out of it and getting momentum rolling, getting that motivation going. Now, tip number 2 is shoot horizontal. In this day and age with Instagram, TikTok, shooting vertical is becoming more and more popular. And I think more and more people are forgetting to shoot horizontal. I know me personally, I've gone out on shoots and came back and every single photo I've shot was vertical. And then later down the line, I might want to, upload some photos to like Shutterstock or to a Adobe Stock, a stock photography site. And we know through data that horizontal photos sell better than vertical photos, because the thing about vertical photos is they're not very croppable. So on stock photography sites, you're looking for photos that are very croppable. So they might need the center section for a vertical, they might need the whole width of the photo for a website, they might be using a square portion of the photo for an ad on Instagram or something. So if you're selling your photos or you want to sell your photos down the line, having horizontal photos sell better because they're more croppable and just overall a more versatile format. And I think it's important to not get caught up only shooting vertical. Yes, Instagram's very popular, TikTok's very popular, but still having those horizontal photos to sell, to print out, just to have and look back at is important. And so my tip number 2 is don't forget about it. Shooting horizontal is still a very important part of photography. So tip number 3 is bring your big camera with you. If you're like me, I'm a little bit of an introvert, and whenever I take a full-size mirrorless or DSLR out into public, it stresses me out a little bit, because you're gonna get more attention. You have this big camera, people are gonna look, they're gonna be like, what are you shooting for? You're gonna get more attention. And so a lot of times I just didn't bring my camera with me because it was just awkward and I didn't want to, attract attention. And I can tell you the more you do it, the less awkward it is. And especially in this day and age, it's getting more acceptable to have a mirrorless camera with you. And I think the importance of having that with you is to just, you never know when there's going to be a cool moment that you're going to want to capture. I know just this past weekend, I was flying back from Atlanta to Pittsburgh, and we were taking off, coming up through the clouds. It was just at sunset. And as the plane kind of cut through the clouds, the light was hitting right off the top of the clouds. Nice gradient in the background, like window seat, beautiful, beautiful shot. And I didn't have this camera with me because I just didn't want to bring it out and have it on a plane because, you know, it's an awkward situation. So this is something that I've learned to get better at, but even myself, there's a lot of times that I wish I had a full frame camera with me to kind of capture those shots, capture those moments. And then another thing is like family events. So just this past Christmas was my niece's second ever Christmas. And so I brought my camera with me. I brought my R6 and was able to capture her opening presents and the joy on her face, and her being around with my brother and his wife and my mom, and just give those photos to them afterwards so that they had professional looking, really nice shots of her just enjoying the moment. And I think it's important as a photographer, we have that gift. So we have that ability to capture moments and freeze that emotion in time. And a lot of times, if we don't have our cameras with us, it's hard to do that. And so that's why my tip number 3 is just bring your camera with you more so you can capture those special moments. Tip number 4 is do the hard things. And I think some of the best shots in history have been the most challenging to get. So if you're hiking a mountain, getting to that vantage point that everybody else isn't going to, just, you know, going an extra mile along the trail. In my experience, the harder it is to get the shot, usually the better the shot is. Another example of this is shooting at sunrise. So I don't know anybody that's like loves the morning. I'm sure there are people out there that love the morning. I'm not one of them. But whenever I go to the beach, something that I do every single day that I'm at the beach is I wake up at about 4:45, 5 o'clock and get down to the beach for sunrise. And so it's not fun. It's hard for me to wake up at 4:45 on vacation. You know, you're supposed to be relaxing, but some of my favorite shots are those sunrise shots. You know, here on the East Coast, we don't get the sunsets as much. So sunrise is, you know, that's the shot, is sun kind of coming up over the ocean. And every single morning, the clouds are different, the colors are different, the waves are different. So waking up early is hard, but you know, it's important, I think, to kind of embrace that challenge to get photos that a lot of people aren't getting. And a perk to that is a lot of times if you're waking up early and going to spots that are harder to get, there's going to be less photos taken from that spot and you're going to have less crowds around. Sitting on the beach at 5 a.m., it's just me and maybe, you know, 2 or 3 other people in a 1 mile span. And so you can really appreciate those moments, and you can capture sunrises that most people don't ever see. So doing hard things, I think, is important to get good photographs. And my last tip is tip number 5, do your research and prepare. So there's an age-old saying, fail to prepare, prepare to fail. And as cliche as that is, I still think it holds some weight and is true to photography. So before a trip, or if you're going to a new city, you're going to a new country, or you're just going down the road to you know, shoot an engagement, 2 things that I like to do before any trip is I'll go on Google Maps and I'll take the little Google Maps dude and I'll drop him in for Street View and I'll walk around and I'll just try to find, you know, cool angles, cool shots, cool parts of the city to visit, you know, maybe a road that's very scenic and has like mountains, and cruise around Google Maps. Google Maps is your friend if you're trying to learn a city before ever being there. And then I like to search the city on Instagram. So I'll search whatever the city is, hashtag whatever the city is, and see what other photographers are taking photos of. So a lot of times doing that, you can see different parts of the city that maybe you didn't know were photogenic. And so research on Google Maps, research Instagram, or, you know, Google Images, or wherever you want to go. But just looking ahead of time at spots and places to go to get those cool photographs, I think is important. Another useful research tip is figure out where the sun rises and where the sun sets. So if you've never been there before, you know, maybe the sun sets over the harbor, or it rises and you want to get, you know, the skyline in the background. So on top of using Google Maps to figure out kind of where to be, use there's several apps out there, but use an app or use, you know, the internet to figure out where the sun's going to rise and where it's going to set. And that way you can kind of position yourself and plan your trip around shots that you want to get. And that's really it. So that's my 5 photography tips that I wish I knew earlier in life. These are things that I've kind of learned the hard way, and being a professional photographer for over 10 years, these are tips that I use frequently just to get better shots and be a better photographer. And so hopefully some of these tips help you. I know some of them are just theory-based, like the motivation, but hopefully you can take some of these tips and implement them in your life and just become a better photographer. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. First video of 2022. I'm hoping to do more of these. So thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.